Hello everybody and welcome to episode 1 of the Teacup Mouse podcast. My name is Emily and this first little bit is going to be a little different than my normal podcast episodes. I'm hoping for future episodes to be able to just jump right into the content without too much of an introduction. Considering this is episode 1, I thought it would be appropriate to go ahead and just do a little, nice to meet you type of a thing. I am Emily, as I have said. I am currently living in Clarksville, Tennessee with my sister. I used to be the host of the Emma Couture podcast here on YouTube, and I was the dyer behind Emma Couture Yarns. About a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I ended up going through a divorce and moving to a different state, and it was absolutely loads of stress and anxiety and panic, and there were so many bad memories and stuff associated with my previous podcast that I decided that it was time to put a close and a stop to that one and to move forward with my new life circumstances and everything else. So I took a very long time to stop and think about whether or not I actually wanted to do another podcast or make more YouTube videos or anything like that, and I just could not get the idea of having a podcast out of my head. I would think about things while I was knitting or sewing, and I would be playing the stories through my head of how I would talk about them on a podcast episode or anything like that, and I finally I bit the bullet and I realized that I'd thought about it long enough, I knew well enough what type of an atmosphere and mood and the things I would like to talk about and share and all of that. I knew what I wanted from a podcast, so here I am. Yeah, so right now I am currently doing a bit of freelance work. I am an aspiring children's book writer and illustrator. I just recently quit an incredibly stressful job, and I thought I had another job lined up that kind of fell through, so I'm going to be taking the next couple of months to work on getting my illustrating skills up to par, really developing the Teacup Mouse brand, because overall my goal is for it to be a general crafty and lifestyle and painting and all of those things, like that type of a brand overall. Cozy, calm, simple, whimsical, all those beautiful, lovely things. I have absolutely loads of plans for different little videos that I am planning to put on this YouTube channel. This podcast is just going to be one portion of my overall brand. It is probably going to be a bi-weekly or monthly podcast. I absolutely love the format that Katie of Inside Number 23 has switched over, where she's just doing a monthly podcast where she talks about all the things that she got up to in that month. I will link her podcast down below because it is absolutely beautiful. I've been watching it for years and it is one of my favorite knitting creative YouTube podcasts. But anyway, yeah, so I have lots of videos and things that I'm going to be sharing. I love reading. I'm going to be talking about making vlogs about some of my favorite authors and illustrators and books that I really love and that I've read a dozen times. I've got plans for videos on, tried and true patterns for sewing and knitting, and, different like tips and tricks. I'm going to have videos of me painting and drawing, and I'm just so excited to get this next adventure, journey, whatever you want to call it, started. But that is enough of an introduction, so let's go ahead and talk about some creative things. The first project that I would like to talk about is actually one that has been on my needles for probably close to 2 years at this point. I have been working recently to really get through any older or long-term projects that I've been working on for far too long. And to just get them off the needles or get them finished if they're a sewing project or anything like that. So the first one is this. This is the Orem sweater. It is a pattern for Brooklyn Tweed by Veronica Avery, and if that is an incorrect mispronunciation, forgive me, but it is a beautiful sweater. I will pop a picture up here on the screen so that you can see it. So it's a lovely like tea top sort of a thing, and it's got this gorgeous collar and the little like over oh, what do you call it? I had to go through and fix my memory card. I decided to act up. Anyway, as I was saying, this is the Orem sweater. I have completed the entire back. I'm going to actually show you a close-up of the stitch detail because I absolutely love it. It's knit in pieces, but this is the right side of it, which is mostly purl, and then you've got this knit stitch detail, and it's just beautiful. I really like it. So when I had put this down previously, I had completed the back. I had done all of the front except for, I was about there on the front. And I had done a portion of the right front piece, and I was looking at it, I couldn't figure out precisely where I was in the pattern, and the stitch count was just way off. And so I ended up just pulling it back to where I had split to do the two front pieces and starting over from there. And it worked perfectly. I just followed the pattern and it was all good. So I finished that side, I'm on to the left front. I've still got a bit to do. I've got to do a few more rows and then the collar extension. Then I have to block all the pieces, seam the front to the back, and then I'll have to finish the neckline here. I don't know exactly how it works yet because I'm not there, but this piece will be seamed over top of these stitches here. And I can't remember if there's something, if you do something to the neckline. I know you do a couple of rows of something on the sleeves, but I am very, very close to being done, and I'm really excited. I don't remember if I mentioned or not, I'm knitting this out of one of my hand-dyed yarns. A lot of the yarns that I have in my stash are leftovers from when I had my hand-dyed yarn company, and I'm trying to work very hard to knit from my stash. And actually it's not that hard, let's be real. I like a lot of the colours that I have, and my finances are not exactly overflowing at the moment, so it's pretty simple to just use what I have. Not to say that it's not tempting to go and buy other yarns, but I am frugal by nature, so it makes it a little easier. But anyway, yeah, so there's that. The next project that I wanted to talk about is actually some socks that I've been working on. But first, let me take it to sip of water. So this year, for the first time, I decided to make some short socks. I have knit loads of just regular hand knit socks, and I don't know why, I just never had attempted shorter like ankle socks. I'd always done the typical like longer ones, but I realized that I wear a fair amount of like store-bought ankle socks, and so I thought, why not try and make my own? I love hand knit socks, so let's see how this goes. I used just some scraps that I had left over from another pair of socks actually that I had knit for my brother. Here it is. I've worn these a few times, so they might be a bit grubby, but they're well loved. And he shortly after I had moved here, I went through and had him help me like pick out the colours and help dye the yarn so that it was like his own special skein of yarn, and I'd knit him a pair of socks out of it, and I had a good amount left over. So I decided I wasn't like super attached to it, so if it didn't turn out I wasn't going to be heartbroken, but they did. I absolutely love them. They're perfect. Sort of, with a bit of a caveat, but I did 5 rows of 2x2 ribbing, then 5 rows of stockinette, then I started the heel, which is just a simple slip stitch, heel flap and gusset, and then worked about 60 rows and then decreased for the toe and finished it off with the Kitchener stitch. So, the one thing that I have, the one problem, is that this ribbing, it doesn't feel like it sections in on your ankle at all. It feels loose and like your socks are going to come off. I realised that that's probably due to the 2x2 ribbing. I go back and forth. A lot of my socks, I went through a phase where I did like only 1x1 ribbing for the cuffs of my socks, and then I started experimenting with using, sorry, my hair keeps sticking to my lip gloss or chapstick or whatever. Ugh. Anyway. And then I went through a phase of only doing 2x2 ribbing, and so that I just did 2x2 ribbing for this, and I realized that there's not enough ribbing to make it so that it, I guess, sections in, recovers enough with just 2x2 ribbing. So for my next pair of short socks, because there was a next pair, I did 1x1 ribbing, and I did the same number, you know, 5 rows of 1x1 ribbing, 5 rows of stockinette, and then the heel and yada yada. And that's what that looks like. Also, can we take a moment to admire? I love these. They're both my hand-dyed yarns, but the combination of the two is just, it made me so happy. They were just a couple of scraps that I had left over. The beauty of these is they only take about 40 grams of yarn. So if you've got a couple of mini skeins, that's enough to make a pair of socks, which is fantastic. Let's be real here. But I'm getting distracted. So I did the 1x1 ribbing. It's much, much better. Still not quite perfect, but it's good enough to suit me. And I am planning to, once I can, get some elastic thread, and I've seen a couple of tutorials for how to just kind of weave it around the cuff, and then that gives it just a little bit more recovery to it. But I'm making another sock. And this is actually out of, since I just had the label here, Reynolds Swizzle sock yarn, I think is what it is. That's the label there. This is actually given to me by somebody once I moved to, a lady in my church. She gave it to me, and it's an Italian yarn. I think it says it's made in Italy, so I'm assuming Italian. It's just a 75-25 superwash merino nylon, but it has like a nice rustic, bit of a toothy feel to it, and it seems like it has so much more elasticity, like in the cuff and stuff. I decided to do 8 rows of 1x1 ribbing instead of 5, and then 2 rows of stockinette, then the heel and everything. And I absolutely love how it is knitting up. It feels like it's just going to be a nicely wearing sock that it will last a while. I am about 15 rows from being ready to start the toe decreases, excuse me. And I think I'll probably be able to get a decent portion of that done today, or over the weekend. I'm hoping to get it done today, and then I can cast on the next one and get a good chunk done in it on the second sock over the weekend. But I absolutely love how this yarn is knitting up, and yeah, there's not much more to say about it. It's just a basic short sock. I have a feeling there are going to be a lot more of these. They're almost like an instant gratification project, because you just knit the cuff, you knit the heel, and then it's just smooth sailing to the toe. And they only take a few days if you have enough time to work on them exclusively. Anyway, so that's all for that one. Yes, so the next project that I'm going to talk about is something that I recently started and is going to be a much more long-term... Oh, I almost did forget, before we move on, I'm knitting these on DPNs. They are US size 1 and then 2.25mm over 56 stitches. That is my standard sock recipe, which, also another side note, which is absolutely splendid, it's my boyfriend, who is a lovely and brilliant and wonderfully amazing person. I am not biased at all. His feet are ever so slightly bigger than mine, but they're close enough to the same size so that I can use the same stitch count, and I can use my feet as reference for how big to make his socks. So I can make him absolutely loads of surprise hand knit socks, and I don't have to measure them on him or anything. I can just knit it exactly as I would knit my sock, and it is a luxury, honestly, because it's perfect. Anyway, side note over. So the next project that I'm working on is super simple. I'm knitting it on US size 2, which is, I think it has it on the needle here, on the needle cable. Maybe? 3mm is what it says. I guess? I don't know. Here's what it is. This is what it looks like so far. So this is my version of the very popular scrappy blanket patterns that have been going around. There's the Coziest Memory blanket, which is just the little squares that are knit together, and then there's the Granny Stripe blanket. And it seems like everybody has been making those, and it's really quite brilliant because you get to use up all your scraps, and you get to like love your beautiful colorways a bit longer and all that. So I debated back and forth. I thought about starting a couple of those blankets for a really long time, and I realized I didn't really want to. I almost made the Habitation Throw by Helen Stewart, but it looked like it was just a bit too much. It wasn't quite as simple as what I had in mind. That was the beauty of like the Granny Stripe blankets and the Cozy Memory blankets, is that you don't need to follow a pattern or anything. It's just garter stitch or just a basic double crochet, and it's super simple. But I didn't really want to do either of those, so I decided to come up with my own version, which is this. And it's not much right now, but I have been just loving it. It's smooth sailing so far. But basically what I've done is I cast on, I think I started with 2 stitches, and then every other row I'm increasing 2 stitches. So I will knit 1 row, and then the next row I will knit 1 front back, knit to the end of the row, knit 1 front back, turn my work, and just do a knit row, and back and forth. And it's so simple and easy, and I'm loving it. And the thing is it's so customizable because I can just keep going until it gets to about half the size that I want it to be, and then decrease down, and we're done. I've got a blanket. So, and it's perfect because I can use up all my scraps and bits and pieces of yarn. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. And I know it's going to take me a while because honestly, I don't have loads of mini skeins or anything. I do have some scraps and whatnot, but I have a scrappy sweater that I'm not going to pull out and show you right now. I might show you the next episode. It's kind of an hibernation for the moment until I get a few more scraps that I can put into the scrappy sweater. But once I finish with that, then I will put all of my scraps into here, and it is so beautiful. So far, all of these yarns are just my hand-dyed yarns, except for this colorway right here. Oop, there we go, camera. And that is a Miss Babs, it was a little sample mini skein thing that I got at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival when I went a couple years ago. It's the only yarn festival that I've been to, and I picked up a few of her little sample mini skeins or whatever, and I absolutely love this colorway. But all the rest of these are just random assortment of leftovers that I had, and like this colorway right here, that is the leftovers that I had from knitting these socks, and it is just, it makes me so happy. I love it. I wish I remembered the recipe or had written down the recipe so I could make enough of this yarn that I could knit myself a sweater out of it, because it is just gorgeous. I love that it's mostly creamy, but it's got enough color and pops and bits and pieces. I love like funfetti cake and things like that, and I've seen a couple of sweaters where they've just got like the pops of color, and I love it so much. I might have to. I do still have all of my yarn dye and stuff, and I have quite a bit of undyed yarn, so I might have to try and see if I can replicate it, but I love it so much. It makes me so happy. And it's looking splendid. I can't wait until it's, you know, further along and bigger, and it's just perfect because it's so mindless. You don't even have to think about it. You just knit and knit and knit and increase a couple stitches every other row, and yeah, jobs are good then. So yeah, that is all of the knitting projects that I'm going to talk about today. I have a few other I've got a crochet project, a blanket that I'm working on, and like I said, that scrappy sweater, but I wanted to keep things a bit short because I have several other things that I have to do today, and I would love to be able to get this uploaded today, considering it is May 1st, which is probably my favourite day in the entire year, aside from Christmas and birthdays and Thanksgiving. It's my favourite non-official holiday type of a day. I don't know. I love May, and May 1st was, you know, part of the old May Day traditions, like festivals and stuff, so you should definitely give that a Google. It's absolutely lovely. The last project I wanted to mention really quick here is a sewing project. I'm not going to show you all of it, but I cut out a Anna dress, which is a pattern by Hand London. I've made several of these, and I cut it out of this beautiful cotton fabric from Minerva, which, oh my goodness, it is a dangerous website to go to if you happen to be a sewer, because Minerva has absolutely loads of fabric. They have and it's not just fabric, they have so many supplies and everything, it's just mind-boggling. But this is a gorgeous just cotton, and I modified the pattern slightly because I swapped out the beautiful gourd skirt on it. It's like different panels, and don't get me wrong, it is a lovely skirt pattern, but it takes a bit more time and whatnot, and I just swapped it out for a half circle skirt. And it's purely because I wanted something simple and easy and that I could whip up in a couple of hours to just really get my sewing mojo kick-started, because I've had several like languishing bits and bobs projects. So like this bag that I just made the other day is actually made from the skirt portion of a dress that I had cut out last summer sometime, and it had just been sitting there and sitting there and sitting there, and oh, it was hanging over my head like nobody's business. It was absolutely ridiculous. And so I was trying to sort out whether I should go ahead and make the dress or if I was going to actually wear it or anything like that, and I realised that I wasn't going to wear it and that it would be much better suited as a project bag. And actually there were two dresses, and I turned both of them into project bags, and that was such a weight off of my mind. I feel like I've actually got my sewing capabilities back again. But I just wanted a quick, simple, springy dress, and I'm really trying to work through. I'm moving in a couple of months, and so I want to eliminate as much of my fabric stash as I possibly can, and I just needed to get it jump started with a really super simple spring dress. So that's what's in the books for sewing, and I think that's just about all that I have to talk about today. I am so glad that you are popped in to join me. I am really looking forward to making some more episodes and making more things to share with you. I have, like I said, so many plans for so many different little videos that I would love to make. So stay tuned for those. Yeah, that's all that I have for you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon.